for President Obama now, between now and Election Day. What does he hope to accomplish over the course of the next 3 months or so? And given the impasse that he has with congressional Republicans, what alternatives does he have to exercise those options?
Well, listen, the fact that Congress hasn't done a whole lot during the first 8 months of the year doesn't give us a lot of hope that they're going to get a lot done over the next 2.5 months or so, and that's been a source of disappointment. In particular, it's been disappointing that while Congress is in the midst of a 7-week break, that there are Americans in some communities across the country that are dealing with the Zika virus being actively spread in their communities. And it's unfortunate that Congress skipped town for a 7-week recess without being focused on providing the resources that our public health professionals say are necessary to do everything possible to fight that virus. When members of Congress get back to work, we're hopeful that they'll make providing Zika fighting resources available to public health professionals a top priority. They should have done that 6 months ago when the president and public health professionals first asked for the resources. And hopefully they'll get to work when they get back. But look, it's Republicans who have blocked the president's request.
And they say you're the ones who have blocked their request. They've passed a bill with full funding for Zika treatment.
Well, actually what happened is that there was bipartisan support. There were some Republicans that did come on board with the Senate bill that did get consideration, that did include full funding. There was a compromise measure that some Republicans were able to pass through the House. A different version was passed through the Senate, but both of them were laden with a bunch of politically motivated riders that made clear that they weren't actually interested in passing funding to fight Zika. They were actually trying to make progress on an ideological agenda. And the fact that they would hold hostage Zika funding just so that they can limit funding to Planned Parenthood, for example, is frankly embarrassing for Republicans who can't do their job. Let me add one more thing to this. I think the other thing that's been appalling is not just that Republicans went on a 7-week vacation without doing their job. They've actually spent their 7-week vacation bragging about not doing their job. So I don't know if all of you saw these comments from Leader McConnell. This is the highest ranking Republican in the United States Senate, who said, quote, "One of my proudest moments was when I looked Barack Obama in the eye and I said, Mr. President, you will not fill the Supreme Court vacancy." It takes a lot of nerve to take a 7-week vacation when you haven't been doing your job. But it takes an extra special dose of nerve to brag about not doing your job during your 7-week vacation. I think we now have a pretty good illustration of why congressional Republicans are polling so low.
Last question. You know that Zika funding is there now. Money has been transferred from Ebola funding, the threat of which has diminished greatly since the height of that fear.
Well, there has been money that's been transferred, but that money has been transferred from Ebola accounts because Congress hasn't provided sufficient funding so that we can fight Zika. And it does mean that even if there is a small risk from Ebola, why would we take that chance? Why would we be diverting our attention and resources that we know are needed for Ebola so that we can fight the Zika virus? The only reason that we have to do that is because Congress has utterly failed to do what's responsible and necessary to ensure that our public health professionals have everything that they need to do everything possible to fight the Zika virus. And so it is a source of significant disappointment that Congress hasn't acted responsibly. The truth is there are plenty of Republican representatives in Congress from states that are at risk from the Zika virus. And hopefully one of them is going to demonstrate some leadership and actually have some influence with the Republican leadership in the United States Congress and actually get this done. But right now there's a special onus on these Republican members of Congress from states like Florida and Georgia and Louisiana. These are states where we know that the Zika virus is likely to spread. Texas is among them as well. And those all have representatives in the Senate and the House who are Republicans. And I think the only way this is going to get done is them figuring out how they're going to be able to persuade the Republican leadership to let this through. And thus far, those Republican representatives from Florida and Georgia and Texas and other places have failed. And it's their citizens that they were elected to represent who are going to have to bear the cost of that. All right, Anita.
Thank you. In the last few weeks, President Obama has started fundraising for Hillary Clinton's